In this lesson, we'll talk about the properties of numbers. The first property is the commutative property. It states that a plus b equals b plus a. So 3 plus 4 equals 4 plus 3. Doesn't matter what order we add numbers up in, we will always get the same sum. And likewise, it's also true for multiplication. A times b equals b times a. So 3 times 4 equals 4 times 3. And just notice that this does not work for subtraction or division. So a minus b does not equal b minus a. 5 minus 4 does not equal 4 minus 5. 5 minus 4 is 1. 4 minus 5 is negative 1. And that'll always be the case with subtraction. If I say 3 minus 9, that's negative 6. And 9 minus 3 is 6. So it's close. I get the same digit, I get the same number, but you'll always get an opposite sign. So the commutative property does not hold for subtraction or division, only for addition and multiplication. And just the way it doesn't work for subtraction, 5 minus 4 does not equal 4 minus 5, it also does not work for division. 6 over 2 is not the same thing as 2 over 6. So the commutative property holds for addition and multiplication, and it's something we'll use very often. The next property is the associative property, and it just says that it doesn't matter how we associate our numbers when we're adding them up. I could add the b plus c first and then add the a, or I can add the a and b first and then the c, and I'll still get the same answer. I'll still get the same sum. So if I say 1 plus 2 plus 3, that will be the same thing as 1 plus 2 plus 3. If I add the 2 plus 3, I get 5. 1 plus 5 is 6. If I add the 1 plus 2 here first, I get 3 plus 3, that's also 6. So it doesn't matter how we associate these. And the same is true with multiplication. If I multiply b plus c first and then multiply a, I'll get the same product as if I multiply a plus b first and then c. So for example, if I say 2 times 3 times 5, that's the same thing as 2 times 3 times 5. 3 times 5 is 15, and 2 times 15 is 30. So I multiply the 3 times 5 first to get 15. And over here I say 2 times 3 is 6 times 5. That's also 30. So with addition and multiplication, the associative property holds. But just like with the commutative property, the associative property does not hold for subtraction or division. If I say 3 minus 4 minus 5, that's not going to equal 3 minus 4 minus 5. And likewise, if I say 3 divided by 4 divided by 6, say, that's not going to equal 3 divided by 4 divided by 6. So those are not going to hold. And the last property is called the distributive property, and it's a combination of multiplication and addition, and it certainly will not work with division and subtraction. You'll be using this very, very often in algebra. And what it says is if you have something like a and it's being multiplied by two things, by a sum here, that's the same thing as multiplying the a times the b first and then adding the product of a times c. That's the same thing as a times b plus a times c. So for instance, 3 times 4 plus x, say, I'm going to distribute that 3 through. That's equal to 3 times 4 plus 3x. 3 times 4 is 12 plus 3x. You want to distribute the 3 through. That's the distributive property. Let's review some mathematical properties that you've seen in school. If you add 0 to anything, it doesn't change the quantity. So 3 plus 0 equals 3. 1,000 plus 0 equals 1,000. You haven't added anything to it, so it stays the same. If you multiply by 0, you get 0. So anything times 0 is 0. 1,000 times 0 is 0. The 0 wipes anything out when it's being multiplied. If you multiply anything by 1, you get the thing back. It doesn't change the original quantity. So anything times 1 is itself. 3,000 times 1 is 3,000. If you multiply anything by its own reciprocal, you get 1. So 7 times 1/7 equals 1. 40 times 1/40 equals 1. And these properties here have to do with the sign of the product or the sum. If you multiply two positives, you get a positive. If you multiply a positive times a negative, you get a negative. If you multiply two negatives, you get a positive. And here, we're distributing this negative through. We're subtracting a negative. And here you could think of this as subtracting a negative or distributing a negative through. In any case, if you subtract a negative, it's like adding a positive. Or if you distribute a negative through, this negative times negative equals a positive. So those are things to keep in mind. And to be more specific, it's the commutative property of multiplication. This next one, 3 times 7 times b, is the same thing as 3 times 7b. That's that associative property. It doesn't matter how we associate things, we'll still get the same product. So this is the associative property, and specifically of multiplication. And this last property is the distributive property. We're going to distribute this 5 through. We're going to say 5 times x plus 5 times 2. That's how you distribute something if it's sitting in front of those parentheses. If we keep going, 8 times an eighth. Remember, if you multiply anything by its reciprocal, you get 1. 4 plus negative 4 is 0. 7 times 0. Anything times 0 is 0. Two negatives, when being multiplied together, make a positive. Anything times 1 is itself. And if you add 0 to anything, it doesn't change it. And if we keep going, 3 minus minus 4. If you subtract a negative, you get a positive. It's like adding a if you subtract a negative, it's just like adding a positive. So this is equal to 3 plus 4. For this next one, we're going to distribute that 3 through. 3x plus 3 times 4. Here's another distributive property. This is going to equal negative 30 minus 6x. We have to distribute that negative sign. We're not just distributing the 6 through. We have to distribute the negative sign along with it. And for this last one, negative 2 times negative 3 is positive 6. Negative 2 times negative y is positive 2y. So be careful of your negative signs when they're out in front of parentheses. Make sure you distribute that negative sign through. That's one of the biggest mistakes students make, is not distributing that negative sign through. Okay, so I'll see you at the next lesson.